Okay, the next one's from Some Sanity. It's quite a controversial one, and it's for Fetski, and it's about climbing boots. The question goes... Okay, it's quite a long one, so bear with me. Do you regret the climbing boot update? I don't mean in terms of player reaction, I mean by the fact that you said you had plans to do this with other items, but now that you've said that, you're screwed, because everyone knows you'll do it again, and everyone is stocked up on every single item possible now. Lol. 100k anti-dragon fire shields for the win. Which means you can't do it with any other items.
Well, I said it's not controversial because every player has the same opinion about it, I think. So, first of all, yes, it was a mistake, and yes, we're not going to do it again. The main thing that we immediately did after we realized it was a mistake was the question, can we fix it? And the answer was sadly no, the damage has been done. So now we just have to make sure that everybody in the company realizes this was a mistake and we're not doing this again. The reason that we did it, I think, is that sense of perfection that we have in the company. People want to do a good job. People see something wrong in the game and say we need to fix this. And I always say we only have two problems in Jagex. One is legacy, one is contingency. So these are the things that limit us. And at this point we didn't pay enough attention to the legacy. And some players, yes, got a lot of money from it. It was not a tenth of the people who made out to have that many climbing boots, and I said this before on the forums, you know, it's on the economy it didn't have any impact whatsoever. It had, compared to the money that normally, or the GP that normally are flowing into the game on a daily basis, was something like, you know, 8 to 10% of that. So it really didn't, on the grand scheme, it didn't make any problems. But what we learned from it is we didn't want to nerf, because normally we nerf and we change things. We went the other way, we went far too far. And yes, we learned our lessons from that, we keep learning.
Thank you, Pesky. Okay, next question is about graphics, and comes from Zaras Divine. And the question is, why don't you make new animations and graphics optional, toggleable? Dean?
Firstly, it's going to increase test time. We currently test RuneScape in 4 different modes with a team of 14. As you can imagine, RuneScape is a very vast game. To add that next level of options and toggleables is just going to increase that. Also, personally, I believe it's going to affect the gameplay experience. I mean, if I go back to Nomad and we take away that really cool attack anime he does and the special moves he does, and just puts you there in the fight, I really think you're going to lose a lot of that experience. There's also the question of what options do we assign the toggle to and what animations do we assign them to. Some are used for actual timings of the balancing of the game and stuff like that, so they're very important. I mean, as a player, would you be happy to just stand there doing nothing when you're fletching and it just appears in your inventory? And there's a lot of questions to it. Personally, I don't think we'll be doing it in the future. So.
That's great. Thanks, Dean. The next one's from Some Sanity again, and it's for Andrew, and it's about RuneScape technology. Question goes, RuneScape has always been based on the 32-bit Java system, which seems to limit the potential of the game. Have you ever thought about changing it?
In actual fact, the core parts of the game are no longer written in Java anyway. Ever since we launched RuneScape HD, large chunks of the graphics have been done in C++ and assembler, so we're no longer limited by that. That was what allowed us to do RuneScape HD. The main things which limit us these days are we're trying to get a game which downloads very quickly. We don't want it to be 2 gigabytes to download, which means we have to use things like procedural textures, which we generate the textures rather than drawing them, which makes it harder. And the fact that we want to run on a wide range of computers. We want to run on the oldest computers, we want to run on the newest computers. The difference from the slowest to the fastest is enormous. You know, you're talking about a factor of 1,000 differences in some cases. So those are the biggest limiting factors for us now: download size and huge variety of target platform. But we're no longer entirely based on Java anyway.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, next question is for Joe, and it's about graphics, and it comes from Kyle Watson. The question is, how would you ideally like the graphics in RuneScape to evolve? Would you like it to look as realistic as possible, or do you want to keep a kind of cartoony sense to the graphics that you can see in some other MMOs?
I think in order to sort of answer that question, I think you really have to take something from both of them. I think if I just talk about a couple of our sort of graphics improvements projects, I can tell you more like what I'm thinking. So this was the original Draenor Manor, I think 2004, and we did do another upgrade later, and then we've done one relatively recently where I think it kind of, you know, for me, it, you know, evokes what it should have looked like originally. In order to sort of put this in context, when I started playing 7 years ago, there were only 3 people on the art team. If you flash forward now, there's about 30 of us, so it means we can really spend much more time getting the quality where it needs to be. So I think here is an example where this is the Troll Mountain area. So this is one of our reworks which is currently in production. And I think if you said, does this look more realistic than the current version that's in the game, I think it would be yes. But I think we would really want to aim for more of a stylized realism. So yes, it is going to still be, some would say cartoony, but I think, is it going to be more realistic? Yes, it's definitely going to be more realistic. The key battle that we have to kind of fight is, as Christoph said, legacy is one of our issues. And from my point of view, and I think from everyone here, the thing that we really want is consistency as much as possible. So we do take into consideration, the sort of the player reaction and how frequently people use things when we do our graphics improvements. So, this is something that we want to kind of build into which areas we upgrade. The other thing to bear in mind is technical engine changes as well. So if I just show you a previous version of Sonaris, so most people have seen the old Sonaris and the new one. One of the engine improvements which I'm very excited about, which hasn't been rolled out to yet, is Bloom, which is just a nice way of making things look a bit more, special, ethereal. And this is just one of the many things that we can kind of add to our tool set. So I think the way the graphics are going to evolve over the years are, yes, it's going to be more realistic, it's while still being cartoony, and I think we are going to hope to build in as many as possible of these engine improvements so that overall graphics have high quality and are more consistent.
Great, thank you, Joe. Right, okay, the next question is on capes, and it's for Mark, and the question is, will free-to-play players or veterans ever get their own capes?
Right, settle this once and for all. Free-to-play will not get skill capes. We're not intending to give the free-to-play the skill capes. We consider skill capes to be members of content. And we will be releasing a max cape. We will be releasing a veterans cape. Believe me, it's something that... something that Christoph asks me about every other week. He has a few topics that he changes around every once in a while just to upset me. And I'd said a long time ago I wasn't going to release a veteran cape until we'd finished working on the skill. Obviously the skill was Dungeoneering, and obviously we were working on Dungeoneering for about 18 months. So now that it's out, now that we've got players quite high up in the Dungeoneering skill, we're going to start thinking about the veteran cape. So all I can really say is watch this space.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, the next question is on past updates, and it's for Fesky and for Joe, and it's, which past update has been the biggest pain in the bum to implement? Fesky?
Well, the one that I really thought was quite easy, but then it took a lot of back and forth, was the PvP World updates, because we just wanted to get it right. We just really wanted to give you guys as much of a wilderness experience as possible. And the drop mechanic, of course, was the main thing that we needed to talk about, as Andrew mentioned earlier. And that really was a lot of fine-tuning and running, like, okay, does it work for clans? Okay. Does it it pures? Okay. Does it work for people with their mains? Okay. And lots of checking needed to be done, lots of people involved. We always want to avoid design by committee, because we always think that, the exciting edges get lost when you work by committee. But that one was where we had to check with a lot of people, does it work? And a lot of time the answer was like, you know what, it's not good enough, back to the drawing board. And so therefore, although it seemed so easy, a lot of thought has gone into it.
For graphics, I'd probably have to say many of our improvement projects are very, very hard to implement. It's very easy to design a brand new area from scratch and design it, build it, map it, and put it down. But when you're changing things on the live game, it's very difficult. And I remember, in my early days, I think I put down some trees, and I changed the trees position because I thought they looked nicer. And luckily QA got this, but if a player had logged in, they would have been stuck in the trees and wouldn't have been able to get out. So it's something that we're kind of always bearing in mind, not to change the layout of things too much, and trying to separate the graphics from the gameplay, because even the thing with the trees, if I decided just graphically I think trees would look better the other side of the river, well, that's just going to totally break balancing. So I'd say, yeah, implementation of improvement projects can be very, very tricky sometimes.
Thanks, guys. Okay, the next one's for Mark, and it comes from, I think I'm saying this right, Zone 2, and it's about hit points versus constitution. The question goes, earlier this year, one of RuneScape's oldest skills, Hitpoints, was changed to Constitution. I find it hard to believe that all of RuneScape's staff would support such a change. Was this decision to change Hitpoints made as a team, or was it a call made by the top dogs?
So, not every single update is loved by our players. That's the same with our staff. Not every single update that we work on is loved by every member of staff. And, you know, it's just people feel differently about different changes. And I guess the best way I can justify the changes that we made to Constitution is by describing some of the benefits that the change bring. So the first one is that it brings us granularity of hits at a very low level. And what that means is that players that are very early to the game, they're not going to get hit for a minimum of 10% of their hit points every time they're hit by something. So if you think about it, when you started the game, you only had 10 hit points, a monster's minimum damage was 1. That's actually quite a lot. And it doesn't really give you any chance to react to what's going on around you, and we found that a lot of people were dying very early on in the game, which wasn't very good. Obviously, you don't really care about that as observing high-level players, so what I'm going to say to you is that separating the skill from the points allows us to create new gameplay features, such as environmental effects that would limit the amount of maximum life points you can have at any time, or a spell that would remove the ability to heal in certain situations. It just means that when you separate the life points from the Constitution, you can do a lot more with the content. I will admit that perhaps choosing a name that abbreviated to the same 3 letters as another skill already did, that probably wasn't the best decision that I ever made in my life. So I'll admit to that, that wasn't a great move. But I honestly believe that you'll all like the changes in the future when you see more of the gameplay options that we can offer you.
Well, the abbreviation of engineering isn't that great, so we're going to have to think more about the abbreviations.
I quite like Don. I think it's got a good ring to it. I don't really know why. Anyway.
Thank you. This is the last question, and it's another one from Mark, and it's from Zardragon, and it's, will you ever create a harder grade than a Grandmaster quest?
Yes, we will continue to create quests. We have this kind of ultimate dream that for every single skill, you would have, say, 50 quests. So for every other level, you would have a quest that you could do at that level. So you'd spend a level grinding your skills, you'd spend a level doing questing, mini-games, those kind of ideas. Those are the things that we ultimately want to do. We kind of keep pushing our quests up and up and up and up and up. It's very difficult to suddenly make a massive jump to the top, because all those people that are like training for a certain storyline, if you've got like 70 in 70, 75, which is where our sort of Grandmaster levels are at the moment, if I suddenly made a jump to 95, you'd have 20 levels to make, and you all know how long it's going to take to train from 75 to 95. It's not very fair on someone who's really been following the storyline and suddenly they need to make this massive jump. So we will eventually get to the point where we're going to make higher and higher level quests, and I expect I'll call them something like elite quests.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm afraid that's all the time we've got for questions, so could I ask you all to give them team a round of applause? Thank you.
What are the requirements that they need for a veteran?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So that is our penultimate session. We've got one more to go.